The Hawks are looking to bounce back this week versus Ball State. This is Incompetent Sports Talk. Welcome to another edition of Incompetent Sports Talk. Along with Mike Rabin and Jake Burgers, I'm Alex Salzma. The Iowa Hawkeyes lost in Arizona 34-27. And let's talk about why Arizona won this football game. Number one, the Hawkeyes did not come out ready. 5 minutes into this game, the Hawkeyes were down 14-0. Another reason why, special teams. Special teams failed the Hawkeyes. They had a blocked extra point at the end of the game that would have gave them the lead. They had a kickoff return for a touchdown. They had a punt that was blocked, that was returned to near around the 10-yard line, that pretty much gave Arizona a touchdown. There's 15 points right there. You want to talk about more points that we just gave them? Well, here's 6 more. The Ricky Stanzi interception that was returned, which wasn't even really Ricky's fault. There's 22 points that we practically just gave Arizona. If you take a look at drives that Arizona had, where they actually had to drive most of the length of the field, they only had 13 points. But what is most disappointing about that 13 points was the fact that the 7 of those, that touchdown that we allowed, that long drive at the end of the game after we tied it up at 27. Oh, just what a heartbreaking loss. The running game was a disaster. Adam Robinson, sadly, only 5 yards on 10 carries. Iowa Hawkeyes had 29 yards on 26 rushes. Joel Hampton now, who knows how long he's going to be out. Mike, the disaster in the desert. What do you think?
It was a difficult game to watch. Special teams, as you said, really struggled, and really uncharacteristic of a Kirk Ferentz football team. If you look from 2002 through 2005, the reason the Iowa Hawkeyes had success and won big games was because the special teams was effective. Coming into the season, the pundits, the experts felt that Iowa on special teams would be at the top of the Big Ten, and clearly now we have a lot of things to fix there. I want to give Ricky Stanzi some credit, though. We were taken out of our game plan of running the football. Ricky Stanzi still threw for over 300 yards, and he threw for 3 touchdowns. As you said, the interception was not really his fault. Marvin McNutt needs to catch that ball, and it took a fortuitous bounce right into the hands of Trevin Wade, who, of course, had an interception a season ago in Iowa City. Iowa, a lot of things they need to work on, but I have confidence that this team will rebound and give the team some credit, down 27-7 at half, to come back, to tie the game, to not give up on the road like that, in that heat and in that environment. I have to say I'm proud of the comeback, but then ultimately they came up short.
But also, too, I guess on a positive note, this team still does have a lot to play for. I mean, you take a look at 2002, we lost to Iowa State early, bounced back, won the Big Ten. 2004, lost 2 games early in the season, we lost to Michigan, lost to Arizona State, bounced back. I mean, 2008, we were 3-3 to start the year. Jake, still a lot to play for.
Yes, we do have a lot to play for. We still are in line for competing for the Big Ten championship. As Mike said, too, this team does deserve a lot of credit. You can write a book with how many mistakes we made against Arizona, but to come back and tie the game late in the fourth quarter after making all those mistakes really says a lot about the resiliency of this team led by Ricky Stanzi. As we've gone over, our rushing game just was non-existent, and we also put a lot of pressure on Ricky Stanzi by only handing off to the running back 17 times and throwing 33 times. 9 more times Ricky Stanzi ended up getting either sacked or having to scramble for extra yards. Put a lot of pressure on him. He still threw for almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, just that 1 interception, which really was not his fault. Our defense looked pretty solid. It was just the most disappointing thing was special teams giving up those touchdowns, and Moss Ruckers missed extra point that would have actually given us the lead in the fourth quarter. But after all that, we lost to a very good Arizona team at making all those mistakes and almost came back. So there is some positives to see in this game.
Right. And let's give Nick Foles some credit. He threw for 300 yards against our defense. The linebackers had a really hard time covering the Arizona receivers in the zone. Arizona sat in that zone, sat in the pockets, were able to make plays. And we stopped their run game. Nick Grigsby only had 22 yards rushing, a guy who had 8.4 yards per carry coming into that game. So the defense, I know they're taking some heat for the way the game played out, but as you said, Alex, in reality, I think you can only blame 13 points on our defense. So another solid performance, and then Broderick Benz, making that play, getting us back in the ball game. There's some good things and bad things, but we'll bounce back this week.
let's talk about Mike Stoops. I don't remember a game where a head coach just acted like a child on the sideline the entire game. I mean, whether it's yelling at the refs on every single penalty, just walking up and down the sideline, yelling for no reason apparently. I mean, I know Mark D'Antonio was the one who had a heart attack last week, but I couldn't believe Stoops didn't. I mean, that was outrageous. I mean, at least act like you've been there before. I don't really.
Yeah, it was a little disheartening seeing a former Hawk act like that on the sidelines.
Yeah.
He had the stoic Kirk Ferentz when times were bad, and then when times were good, the same emotion, keeping that team ready to go. Stoops, it's difficult because in Iowa City he looked more of that kind of guy, a lot more stoic. I mean, he had some emotion, but in this game, yeah, it's have to say I lost a little respect for Stoops after this one.
Absolutely. I'm not going to get over that loss. It's going to take me a while to get over that loss. That was painful. Okay. Let's talk about now some college football teams that are on the rise or on the down. It's called buying or selling. So we're going to act like we are stock traders, and these football teams are our stock. Are you going to buy them or sell them on having a good season? So let's start with Michigan. Michigan is 3-0 with wins over UConn. They also won at Notre Dame. I'm going to buy them right now. I think Denard Robinson is playing really good football, but I would sell right before the Big Ten season. They play Bowling Green, then they play Michigan State. I think maybe I'll give them the slight edge over Michigan State, but sell all that Michigan stock before they play Iowa, because after then they still got to play Penn State, they still got to play Wisconsin, they still got to play Ohio State, and I don't really see them winning a lot of those games. I still think they're going to have a decent year, go to a bowl game, but I don't really see more than 8 wins, possibly. Jake, what do you think?
I'm with you, Alex. I like Michigan as a short-term buy, but once they reach the Big Ten and they actually start playing real defenses, you won't see Denard Robinson running for 500 or getting 500 yards of total offense by himself. Short-term buy, I like them. Long-term, I think they end the season with 4 losses, but they will get up into the top 15, maybe even top 10 by the time they play Iowa. After that, sell hard.
If Michigan's defense finds a way to improve, this team's going to be tough to beat down the road with their ability to put points on the board. I'm buying. Bowling Green will be a win. I think Indiana, a team that has solid offense, will have a hard time beating Michigan, stopping Denard Robinson. And ultimately, I think Michigan ends the 2-year losing streak to Michigan State, beats them, and I think Michigan will be undefeated when the Hawkeyes come to Ann Arbor. So I'm buying, even sort of into the long term.
South Carolina, 3-0. They beat Georgia. They beat Southern Miss. I'm buying. I like the way Lattimore's playing. Garcia's actually looking like the quarterback he's been billed out to be. I think this weekend they beat Auburn. Mike, are you buying into South Carolina? Usually this is the time of year where they start crashing and burning.
Yep, I'm selling South Carolina. I think they lose at Auburn this week, and then I think they play Alabama the next week in Columbia. They lose that game as well. They go on the road to Kentucky and Vanderbilt, who they've historically beat, and who Steve Spurrier he's historically beat. But I think ultimately they're going to drop 3 out of 4 of those games, and then they're going to be right back to where they normally are, 500 football team.
I'm going to go with Mike on this one. South Carolina has a tough road ahead, playing at Auburn this week. Then they have to play the #1 team in the country. I think this is as high as they will be rated in the polls all year, so I think they're a strong sell.
Temple, they beat Central Michigan. They had a dominating win versus UConn. I am buying Temple. Give me all the Temple stock. I'm buying it all. I love Temple. Jake?
I'm buying Temple as well. This is a team that won 9 games last year. They have only had a few votes for the top 25 right now. Bernard Pierce is preseason. He was touted by his own club as a potential Heisman candidate. He's had a great year so far after a strong freshman year, running for over 1,300 yards and 16 touchdowns. I'm buying Temple. They have a tough test against Penn State this week, but after that, I think they have a relatively easy schedule. I think they'll get to 10 wins. By Temple.
And the MAC isn't really looking that strong, as always, usually at this time of the year. But I think Temple, they're looking by far and away the best team in the MAC right now.
Yeah, I mean, Bernard Pierce, like you said, a talented running back. Chester Stewart, a seasoned quarterback. I'm buying this team. I like the unanimity we have in this pick. I think it's pretty obvious. 6 of their last 9 games, Temple on the road. And even though it's the MAC, playing on the road is not easy. So I think Temple, you got to watch out a little bit, but definitely a buy.